Hello, Erika. It is good.
Hi.
Hi, it's good to meet you. I know we chatted briefly on the phone and connected via text as we got this all set up, but it's a pleasure to meet you, even if via the virtual space. So, as noted, I'm Nicole Thompson, and I'm an intern student with Juliana Poor Memorial Counseling Center. And as a part of our class requirement for graduation and to enhance our learning, we're required to complete this video just for our professors' viewership. We will present the case in class to other students without your name and all that, but only he gets to see this. So based on the informed and disclosure form which I sent, do you have any questions regarding privacy and confidentiality?
No.
Okay, great. So tell me, Erika, what brings you in today and how can I best help you?
So I have been kind of struggling with some depression. Uh, I think I mentioned I have lost in 2020, I lost my older brother and my aunt both to cancer. And then 4 months later, 4 months after my aunt passed away, which was like October 2020, my mom passed away in February of 2021 from cancer. So, and my mom and aunt were siblings, so they were the last of, they were my grandparents' only children. And they were like, so basically, we lost both matriarchs in our family in 4 months' time. So I'm basically like the matriarch of the family now, and I'm only 44. So to me, it's like very strange. It's a very surreal and difficult thing to process because it makes me feel like a lot of pressure to be like perfect, like I have to like be the like ideal for the next generation. So like my nephews and I don't have any nieces.
Mm.
I have the only daughter. So, but of course, like for my daughter, and I have a son. So for my son, and also be a support system for my siblings and my cousins because we all grew up really closely together. Like we literally grew up in a house together. And so being like the example for everybody and the pressure of it all has just gotten to be a lot. And I don't really think that I fully processed the loss of my mom. She lived with us for about 5 months
Mhm.
because she was living with me because my aunt lived close to me and my aunt was in and out the hospital as she um, transitioned from this life. So she was in and out the hospital a lot. My mom lived like almost an hour away. So we just let her stay. We asked her to stay with us so that
Mhm.
she could spend that time with her sister. And so she was living with us for about 5 months. She went home for a couple of weeks and she was re-diagnosed with secondary cancer. So we brought her to stay with us again so we could take care of her. And she was here and she passed away. Well, she didn't pass away in our house, but she did pass away while she was living with us.
Mhm.
So it's been hard dealing with all the feelings and stuff. Like I didn't and I also lost like my great nephew. We weren't
Mhm.
close, but he was so my mom died in February.
Mhm.
And then that following year, my nephew, who was 6, drowned on 4th of July. So, yeah, it's just been like a lot of loss. We lost my husband's aunt as well, his great aunt. So it was like we've had a lot of loss kind of like stacked up in the last 2 years.
Mhm.
And I think it's just becoming really, really overwhelming. And
Mhm.
just, I think it's all kind of hitting me at once. And
Mhm.
so I was like, it's time to talk to somebody.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am.
I'm
That's
sorry that was a lot.
no, 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 you're fine. Actually, that is significant loss.
Yeah.
It sounds really traumatic as well. And if I think about all the time that you just talked about from 2020 up until now, we were also, as a nation and globally, also dealing with the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what the impact of that was, but there has been a lot of loss that you've suffered, and I'm sorry for that. So as we think of the 5 stages of grief, and I will tell you what they are. So there's denial, there's anger, depression, bargaining, and then there's acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
What you mentioned to me is that you are in that phase of depression.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So tell me what that depression looks like, how it manifests, how it shows up, and then tell me what has been helpful.
So, it's like the way it manifests is like I'm usually like I try to be a neat person. I try to be clean and try to keep up with things. And I
Mhm,
find myself a lot of times just not wanting to do any of that. I'm like, oh, I'll do laundry tomorrow. And then I get sad because I'm like, okay, the laundry's like piled up and like my kids are gonna think I'm being like I'm this terrible mom because I'm not doing the laundry, or like
mhm,
my husband's gonna think I'm a bum because I'm a stay at home right now. I'm a stay at home mom because I'm transitioning. It's another thing. I'm transitioning careers. So
mhm,
just I'm just throwing a bunch of stuff on myself at once. But anyway, so just like I'll be like wanting to do things but have no energy or no desire to do them.
mhm,
And then I'll feel bad because I don't have energy and desire to do them
mhm,
and tell myself, oh, you just have to suck it up. People lose people every day. So I kind of diminish my feelings as well. And I think that's the biggest thing is just the lack of desire, like the lack of energy.
mhm,
Not like in the mornings, not wanting to wake up. Like I take my kids to school every day and I'm like, I tell my 16-year-old, when are you gonna learn how to drive so you can do all this? You could take yourself, you could take my son's 6, you could
mhm,
take your brother to school, you could take yourself to school, and I could stay in bed. But it's because I'm just like not feeling like
mhm,
doing. And just like I feel even like trying to think about making decisions kind of feels overwhelming sometimes. I'm like, okay, like what are we gonna eat for dinner? Oh my God, I don't even want to think about it. Like there's so many things going on in my head. What I don't know, like we're just not gonna eat today, or jokingly, right? Of course.
mhm,
But yeah, just really like struggling with making those little decisions that I'm like, these are everyday things. Like, what is wrong with you?
mhm. It's not what's wrong with you, Erika. It's what happened to you.
Yeah.
Mhm. Life happened, and life was really challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you thinking it's almost like you had an aha moment. What did you think of a second ago when I said that?
I mean, I think it's right. Like, it's not like I'm intentionally not wanting to do these things or intentionally like I'm sad. Like I basically lost my whole world,
Mhm,
my mom
mhm.
and my aunt.
Yeah. Mhm. Big loss. Mhm.
And the week before my brother died, I'm sorry.
No, you have nothing to be sorry for.
the week before my brother died, I talked to him, and it was COVID, so I couldn't see him.
Mhm.
He's like, no, sister, I'm fine. I'm fine. It's okay. I'm
Mhm.
gonna beat this cancer. It's fine. And he passed away.
Mhm.
And it was like nothing could happen. You know, we couldn't do anything.
Mhm.
And so it was really tough for me and my older sister. We were talking, we were like, we need to do something. It was like, we can't do anything because we are, I have, my mom has 3 kids, but
Mhm.
my dad had 10.
Mhm.
So we were literally like, we can only have the siblings together. We
Mhm.
can't have our spouses. We can't have our children.
Mhm.
Like it can only be us. Like if it's the siblings, we can't even have our brother's children there
Mhm.
because of the COVID restrictions at that time.
Yeah.
So it's really hard. Like we didn't even have a funeral for my mom. We just had like a little viewing, like a quick viewing, and we had a graveside service,
Mhm.
something really simple because we needed to social distance because it was still COVID.
Mhm.
So even when like my aunt passed, when my aunt was sick, we could only go one at a time. So
Mhm.
if a lot of times we didn't get to see my aunt because my mom was there
Mhm.
and we wanted my mom to be there with her sister. And so we didn't get to be a support to my aunt.
Mhm.
It was tough. It is like you said, this is not what I did.
Mhm.
So it's not my fault
Mhm.
because if I could have changed any of it, I would have. You
Mhm.
know, I would have been there for my brother. I would have been there for my aunt. I would have been like had a like this watch
Mhm.
celebration of life for my mom. You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah, it's tough because you have all that compounded with COVID. So it's almost like you were robbed of the opportunity. There was no closure. And then there was a lack of support because all the family couldn't come together.
yeah.
Yeah. So, what are some things that you can probably do now? I know as it sounds like celebrating their life
Mhm.
would be very meaningful for you and your family. And now that we've opened up as a community and we can do those things, would that be important to you? And if so, what would that look like?
I think that
Or rather, Erika, what would be helpful to you as you think of closure?
so some of the things that we've been doing, because we're just like it's a little family, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like for my mom's birthday, I bought a little cake,
Mm-hmm.
and like my husband encouraged me to do it because I was like, "This is stupid, right?" And he was like, "No,
Mm-mm, no, it's
it's
not.
your mama. You love no, get your
That's
mama a cake and
mm-hmm.
let's have cake for your mom's birthday."
Mm-hmm.
So we had cake for her birthday, which we would do every year. You know, we would always go out to dinner and have cake. So we had dinner, we had cake for her birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I talk to my kids a lot about my mom because with my son being so young, I don't want him to forget my mom.
Mm-hmm.
My dad passed away when my daughter was like 5. So
Mm-hmm.
my son never met my dad.
Mm-hmm.
My husband's dad passed away when my daughter was 1. So neither of my children know their grandfathers. And
Mm-hmm.
so I try to talk to them because I want them to know they had grandparents and their grandparents were good, would have loved and absolutely like my mom loved my kids, like especially my daughter because that was her only granddaughter.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just share like memories, the funny memories of her with
Mm-hmm.
them because I want them to have some fond memories of their grandmother. And with him being so young, he may not have those memories, but I feel like I could plant the seed by retelling the stories to him about him and his
Like
grandmother and their
that.
relationship and they were buddies. Like when she lived with us, he would go in a room with her and wake her up, and
Mhm.
they played together and they laughed together, and she would play games with him and he would cheat, and she would like, you know, she'd call him out on it and they'd argue about it, and he'd laugh because he thought it was funny to cheat. So he
Mm,
still thinks it's funny to cheat. So just stuff like that. Like I think that that really helps me a lot
mm,
to just focus on those good things, those fond memories, and always remind myself that, God is in control of all of it, right? And that one, my mom gets to be with God, which is probably the happiest that she could have ever possibly been. She's
mhm,
not suffering anymore because she was like, her health declined really quickly.
mhm,
So that she's not having to suffer anymore. And that she gets to be with like her mom, her dad, her sister, her
mm,
cousin who was her best friend. Um, she gets to be with those people again in heaven. She gets to be with her grandmother who she lived with her grandmother for a period of time,
mhm,
because my grandmother moved to Houston for work. They were from Louisiana. And so my mom, she sent my mom and aunt to stay with her mother
mhm,
because she was a single mom, and didn't want them home alone in
mm,
a strange city. So she gets to be with all those people that she misses, all those people that she loved, all
mm,
her family that she grew up with. And
mhm,
I mean, for me, that's better than me selfishly having her here, you
mhm,
know.
mhm.
'Cause I had my time with her. I had like what, 42 years with my mom.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's time for her to be able to rest, right?
Yeah, I hear you, but I never want you to minimize your loss.
Oh no, my loss is like looming every day,
Yeah.
but it gives me comfort to know that, yeah, I have lost something significant, but at the same time, my mom has gained something even more significant,
Mhm,
you know.
mhm. Good for
So
you.
yeah, I'll be sad, but I mean, I'll be sad for a while.
Yeah,
But my mom is eternally at peace.
yeah. And it sounds like that gives you great comfort. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm, mhm. Yeah,
sorry.
it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. As you were telling the story about ways that you remember her, I think one of the things that really struck me and stuck out was the retelling of the stories to your children. That's
Yeah,
just, yeah, is so important. And I think that is how legacies live on from generations to generations.
yeah,
Yeah. So I would encourage you to keep doing that.
yeah. It's one of the things that I didn't like about my parents. Um, my mom's dad passed away when she was 18, so we never knew anything about him. And
Mm-hmm.
she didn't really tell us a lot about him. She told us a few things here and there, but like I couldn't tell you what he was like at all, like except he was funny, you know. Like I've talked to some older cousins about him, and so I know a little more about him than what I did from my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad's mom passed away when my brother was a baby, so we didn't know her. And I feel like that's just something that's like a little piece, just
Mm-hmm.
a tiny piece that's missing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want my kids to feel like that. Like I want my kids to know as much as I can give them
Mm-hmm.
about their grandparents.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really healthy, and even getting them involved with in little ways to help memorialize your family members who have recently passed, I think is also really good and really important. I remember you mentioning that when we started chatting that your cousin died July 4th.
That was my nephew.
Your nephew, July
Yeah.
4th as of last year.
Hmm.
And, you know, as just like you did with your mom, I think one of the things that could probably be really helpful as you remember your lost family members would be like getting a calendar
Hmm.
and writing all the birthdays, all the significant moments. And so it's a way to kind of help manage some of the feelings that come up because you'll at least be prepared. It doesn't mean that it will cause sadness to diminish, but at least there's a readiness and a preparation for when those times come.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Yeah, it could be helpful. Yes, Erika, that is all that you've shared is just really significant loss. So, what has been helpful? What has worked to help you kind of manage your day to day? When I think of depression, I think of two things. Depression is almost like you're stuck because of grief and loss and a lost relationship. And when I think of your situation, you're right in that pocket of dealing with all of that. Lost relationships because loved ones have passed and you're just grieving the deaths. So, what have you noticed has been helpful on those days to kind of get you moving and feeling a bit more energized?
So I think like the days are just different. Some days I'm like, okay, we're just gonna get up and we're gonna hit it. So for instance, like I'd read somewhere like if you do something for 5 minutes and you decide after 5 minutes you don't want to do it, then you just stop and then you don't feel so bad because you tried it for 5 minutes
Mm-hmm.
and you tell yourself that that's sufficient. So I've been doing that a lot lately and I've noticed that it's really helped.
Mm-hmm.
Just doing because I don't pay attention to the clock. Like I don't put a timer on it. I just literally say, okay, I'm only gonna do it for 5 minutes. It's like, but me tricking my brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I will complete the task and I'm like, okay, it's done. And if it's been 5 minutes or 50 minutes, like for instance with the laundry, if it takes me like 30 minutes to do a couple of loads of laundry or an hour or whatever to do the laundry and then put it away, I don't watch the clock. It's the act of getting myself started that is like the hard part.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to like just really just get up and just go, just without thinking about it too much.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know if I think about it a lot, I can absolutely talk myself out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I try not to talk myself into or out of it. I just try to do, because like I will have a whole debate with myself about it.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh, you can do it today, but if you do it tomorrow, then tomorrow there'll be a couple of extra things you need to wash. So then that'll make a bigger load, and then that way you're not wasting water, and so it could just like it's like watching a tennis match. You just go back and forth in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of like analyzing it to death, I just
Mm-hmm.
do that 5 minute thing. Like, oh, you're just gonna do it 5 minutes, girl. It's okay. It's 5 minutes, and girl, you can sit back down and watch whatever trash TV you're watching, Real Housewives or whoever or whatever mess you're watching.
So it sounds like having a plan has been helpful for you. Like even noting, 10 minutes of this, 10 minutes of that. So,
Mm-hmm.
and sticking to it in terms of accomplishing your goals.
Yeah.
So you're very self-aware,
Mm-hmm.
great insight, and I want you to give yourself some grace, some compassion, some kindness. These have
Yeah.
been significant losses. And yet you are doing all the things just before I remember in our previous chat, as we were getting to know each other a little bit, you're a wife, you're a mom, you just finished school, you just completed very important exams to propel you into your next career. You're doing all these things. You're resilient, you're strong. And the thing with depression and grief and loss, we know it's not linear. So we don't move from denial all the way to acceptance. It's cyclical. And when you think sometimes you've gotten to acceptance, you go all the way back to denial. So it's just kind of giving yourself some grace to understand that step by step, over time, with therapeutic help, with a strong support system, all the things, you can really get to a place of where the grieving is lessened, because the truth is that you may always grieve.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at least getting to a place where you're able to function, and the memories, the sweet memories are heightened.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, we have just a few more minutes left.
Mhm.
I want to find out a couple of things. What's your support system like, and how are you caring for yourself?
So my support system is um, definitely like my husband. My husband and my mom were really, really close. And so I think we lean on each other a lot. My mom, he has a terrible mother,
Mm,
but I'll say that quietly. But my mom kind of took over on that role of being kind of like a secondary mom to him.
mhm.
And he absolutely adored my aunt. Like my aunt was his probably favorite person in the world
Wow.
next to me. So
Wow.
yeah, my aunt was his friend. He loved my aunt. He
Mm,
really did. So I think that we lean on each other a lot, and um, experiencing this loss the way that we did together kind of helps with him being able to be there for me. And he had already lost his dad.
mhm,
Um, like I said, his dad died when our daughter was 1. So his
mhm,
dad died 13 years before my mom. So he had already experienced the loss of a parent.
mhm,
So he had a unique sense of understanding for it. Um, and then I mentioned I have a lot of siblings. My
mhm,
mom has one son, which is my older brother, and so I lean on him a lot.
mhm,
And he's very, very spiritual, really, really like
mhm,
a man after God's own heart, seriously. Like, and it really, really helps because he really helps to bring the Bible into these moments when you feel that sadness, that hurt, and that despair, and you're like, God, why? You
mhm,
know? And my husband's grandmother, who I call Granny also, like I told him, if we get divorced, I get your grandmother in the divorce. This is happening. But she's Catholic, and she had 5 siblings, and she's the last of her siblings, so she's experienced a lot of loss. And
mhm,
she's also my father-in-law's mom. So when my husband lost his dad, she lost her son.
mhm,
That's the same person. So
mhm,
she has a unique perspective, I think, and she's very, very supportive. She's very, very loving. So
mhm,
I have it's not like a billion people, but
mhm,
I have like a very, very strong support system.
mhm,
My daughter is planning on being a psychologist, and
mhm,
she's very intuitive. Like this kid, it's like I feel like she could go out here and be a therapist today. Like she's very intuitive, very sensitive,
mhm,
and sometimes when I'm down, she's there to help. She's so sweet.
mhm. Sounds like you're really blessed, Erika.
Uh,
Um, and
it's
they
crazy.
sounds like you're really blessed. Also
Yeah.
sounds like all of you are grieving.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're ready and if you're open to it, but I think one of the things that I've seen that has been really helpful is a support group for people journeying with much the same that you are.
Hmm.
And I know we have a great place in Houston called Bo's Place, and they do only grief work. And
Okay.
so that would be something that I would recommend. And it's, you can do individually, you can do it as a family. There's some for children. So even while your daughter is intuitive and strong and mature, she lost her granny too and could probably benefit from that. So as we end this call,
Hmm.
and I think of all that you've shared. First, thank you for the willingness to sit with me today and
Yeah.
to talk about some hard stuff. And I know this was not easy, but I pray that it was somehow meaningful for you. So, as you think of some goals that you'd like to achieve, what would one or two goals be for this session, for our time together as we move on?
Ooh. Um, get through a session without crying.
Sorry.
I was like, I'm not gonna cry. I'm gonna be strong. I got my big girl pants on today. A lie. That
You
was a
know, that crying is not weakness. Crying is you're relieving yourself of some of the loss
yeah.
and all that you have journeyed through. It's not a sign of weakness.
I should have brought an onion. I could have just been like, no, I'm not crying. Just cutting these onions. We gotta eat dinner. I just talked about planning dinner. But no, definitely like I think one of the things that you said is like really something I struggle with, and it's giving myself grace.
Mhm.
I absolutely know
Mhm.
that there has been a lot of loss and that it's been significant. I thought this was funny, but I read somewhere that when your parents die, you become an adult orphan, and I'm
Mhm.
like, that's ridiculous. But in a way,
Mhm.
it it's like that, like you go back to that very kid-like state, like I don't have my parents. I had like the people that I knew the
Mhm.
longest in my life are gone.
Mhm.
And it's hard, it's sad.
Mhm.
And that it's okay to be sad. And, if I need to like take some time, then just give myself that time and not be, constantly beating myself up about it. I think I do that a lot, like with
Mhm.
most things. Like I feel like I create these standards in my mind, and it's probably from social media, maybe a little bit, but also just because I have these high expectations of how things should be. I feel
Mhm.
like I should be this person, but instead of thinking of it from that perspective, looking at it like, what are the good things that you're doing?
Mhm.
Like my kids are growing up in a better life than I did.
Mhm.
My parents were never married. They didn't have like they had a terrible relationship.
Mhm.
My kids will not grow up saying that.
Mhm.
Like me and my husband get along well.
Mhm.
My kids have a really good relationship with their dad. Their dad is very close to them. My husband's very close to our children.
Mhm.
And just the fact that we can do this thing um, that we didn't have experience in. His parents weren't together. My
Mhm.
parents was a very toxic relationship. And
Mhm.
for the two of us to be able to have this strong bond and a strong relationship, just celebrating the good things that I'm doing in my life.
That's awesome. That
Yeah.
is awesome.
Now
So
tell me that tomorrow.